It's interesting to watch the narrative unfold now that Marianne Williamson is poised to jump into the race. MSNBC has actually been the most hostile outlet. Now stop and think about that for a second. MSNBC is supposed to be the most left network, but they've already gone after the most left candidate vociferously. They've been the most unfair with the smears, comparing her to Jill Stein, saying she's an annoyance, things of that nature. CNN and other outlets have been either indifferent or just mildly curious to this point. I haven't seen much talk on the right, but they're a little more open to it on the right just because they like chaos, what they view as chaos in the Democratic Party and infighting in the Democratic Party. But here's another great example of the game MSNBC plays. Now, their role is to be the establishment Democrat apologists. That's their role. That's their role. And they're going to play it perfectly here. So this is in Mediaite. MSNBC analyst tells Biden challengers he'd kick your tail in the primary, and he's in better shape than Obama. Okay, let's listen.
Is that something Democrats should be hoping for? I mean, ultimately, it's all about the 8, right? It's the 8 in front of the number of his age.
Let me just interject here for a second. Is his age an issue? Yes, but only because he's seemingly struggling mentally from time to time. But I actually think it's very condescending to act like that's the main issue when it comes to Biden. No, the main issue when it comes to Biden is not bold enough. Not bold enough. He got 25% of his original agenda done. Now, you could blame Manchin, you could blame Sinema, you could blame him in part, but either way, it didn't work. Didn't get through. There's a lot more he can do, and he didn't do it. So the main issue is policy. That's the main issue. Age is not the main issue. It's a subsidiary issue, but it's not the main issue.
Well, no, you're absolutely right, Chris. Look, I'm going to let you know on a little insider thing here. Nowhere in modern history has an incumbent with anything approaching an 84% approval rating ever lost a re-election, right? So this whole ideal that—
But that's with Democrats. But that's with Democrats.
Right, but that's what. But we're talking about the primary, right? So he has an 84% approval rating among Democrats. So this whole ideal that he shouldn't run, and some people should primary him, is an absurd ideal because if you check.
Now, what's he not telling you? He's not telling you that only 25% of the country wants him to run. That 60% of Democrats are interested in another candidate. That's what he's not telling you. So there's an old saying, there's lies, damned lies, and statistics. It's basically the opposite of the saying, numbers don't lie. Because you can lie by omission and leave out certain numbers and highlight other numbers, cherry pick other numbers, and build a case based off that. So what he's saying here, this is very important to point out. What he's saying here is not wrong. Like, he's citing a true number. So in a sense, he's being correct. But he's not giving you the whole picture. I am giving you the whole picture. Yes, it is very, very difficult to primary a sitting president from within their own party. It is. It just is. It just is. Almost never works, right? It's a fact. But there are certain factors that make this a unique situation, and he's burying the numbers that don't sound as good for Biden. There are many numbers that aren't very good for Joe Biden, and he's just sweeping them under the rug and only giving you the ones that sound good for Biden. That's kind of dishonest. That is kind of dishonest.
Challenged him, he'd kick your tail in a primary because no incumbent with 84% approval rating loses re-election in the primary. Now, if we're going to talk about the general election, look, I would argue. Look, I worked for Obama in both of his campaigns. I think you can make the argument that Biden actually enters re-election in a stronger position than Obama did. I would actually make the argument that he enters re-election in a stronger position than Bill Clinton or George Bush did.
Okay, that I definitely don't agree with. I will say, I think it's undeniable based on the policies that Biden is a better president than Obama and a much better president than Bill Clinton. I think that's undeniable if you actually go policy for policy. He's significantly to the left of them. But the idea that because of that, he's entering in a stronger position, I actually don't think that's true. In part because the numbers I just cited, that the numbers show there are plenty of people who are not totally sold on him. The age thing, which again is an issue. It's not the main issue. It's a side issue, but it is an issue. And he's just not as good of a campaigner, right? Like, he won in 2020. How? Because Donald Trump was president. And there was a pandemic destroying the country and killing so many people. And Trump was clear. It was clearly, he was in over his head. He didn't know what he was doing. And it was more of an anti-Trump vote than a pro-Joe Biden vote, right? Now, it's possible it is Trump again, and then maybe he could recapture that magic. But funny enough, that's actually one of the main reasons why I don't think Biden's in a good position, is because I think there are other Democrats who are way more quote-unquote electable, and including Marianne Williamson. I think Marianne Williamson versus Trump head-to-head, she would come across looking way better than Biden does against Trump head-to-head. You got two incoherent geriatric freaks who are having emotional outbursts on stage and not being able to complete full sentences. I mean, that's what we're going to look at again. They were already struggling back in 2020. You're telling 2024, 4 more years onto it, with the pressure of the presidency and the pressure of what Trump's going through, being an outcast and desperately trying to hang on to relevance and stuff. You're telling me that that's going to be pretty? It ain't going to be pretty. I sincerely believe Joe Biden now has an electability problem. I mean, we'll see, right? We'll see what ends up happening, but there are people who are, even people who voted for him, even people who might think, yeah, he's done an okay job. Even they're like, maybe him in 2024, but, you know, I'd like to see some other options. It's called democracy.
Why do you say that, Cornell? I say that because if you look at the transformational pieces of legislation that he has been able to move that are astonishingly popular. He's got more popular legislation already under his belt than I think the last 3 presidents had when you just look at the popularity of those legislation. If you look at the economy, we have historic job growth right now, and we have inflation coming on.
But real wages are down. Look, again, this is misleading. Biden has been a better president than Obama and Bill Clinton. I give credit where it's due. There are provisions of the IRA that I think are wonderful, and I give credit. I pride myself on being nuanced enough to give credit where it's due, right? But the idea, big, so bold, so transformational, even the basics he hasn't gotten. There's no national $15 minimum wage. There's no public option, which, by the way, is what he ran on. I mean, he got 25% of Build Back Better done. We lost the child tax credit extension. There was a sunset provision on that. Now it's gone. You cut child poverty by 50%. Now it's right back up there again. You can't act like, oh, this is like, New Deal territory with how transformative. It's not. It's just not. We were originally talking about lowering the Medicare age to 55 or 60. That's gone now. That didn't make it through. I mean, I'll give credit where it's due, but don't pretend. Don't spit in my eye and tell me it's raining. And that's what this guy's kind of trying to do.
Control. We have an economy that, quite frankly, most of the rest of the Western world wish they had. And you also have him standing on the world stage as a strong, steady leader, bringing back respectability that to America and American leadership that we had lost under Trump. And you also have him sort of as a historic midterm, the best midterm we've seen in modern history. He absolutely enters re-election better positioned than the last 3 presidents who won re-election.
Look, Democrats can decide. Our strategy from now until the end of time is to just be a little better than the psychos. They want to go in that direction, by all means, go right ahead. But it is my contention that when given the option, and the option is very clear, that not only are the policies better for a more left option, but it's also more electable. Soon as that part clicks, right? The electability part. Soon as they realize neoliberal corporate centrism, tweaks around the edges, status quo management is actually not better policy-wise or more electable, then you're off to the races. And I think that's going to be the mountain we have to climb here when it comes to Marianne Williamson in particular and future left challengers, is that not only to make the argument, hey, our policies are better, because you know what? We won that argument. In every poll, when it was Bernie versus Biden, people acknowledged, the Democratic base acknowledged, we agree more with Bernie than we agree with Biden. That was very clear on all the policies. That was very clear. The thing that Bernie was not able to succeed in convincing people is, I am more electable than Joe Biden. I am the one who can defeat Trump. Well, look, man, my final point that I'll make in this segment, and it's super important, is FDR. Bernie is much more like FDR. Marianne Williamson is much more like FDR than Joe Biden is. FDR won the presidency 4 times. He held 80% of the House of Representatives and 80% of the Senate. You only get crushing numbers like that and electability with somebody who's a fighter for the people and delivers on social democratic programs. And you're not going to get it. You're going to get half measures with Biden. Half measures that are better than Obama's and better than Bill Clinton's. Bill Clinton went way further to the right. But it ain't enough. And as soon as people realize not only is it not enough, but actually the left is more electable, then they'll go in that direction. So that's the test. That's the struggle. That's the message that needs to get across. And hopefully we can get that message across, but it's kind of hard when you got propaganda like this relentlessly bombarding people. He's the best. He's in a much better position to get reelected. He's making it seem like there are no numbers out there that are Biden skeptical, and there are many of them. He's just burying them. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.